Hello, I'm Adrian Clarkson, and I am Kipitaki Aska Nako Sinine Tisapi, grandmother of many nations, honorary chieftain of the Blood Tribe in Alberta. I'm speaking today to you from Toronto, which is in the Dish with One Spoon territory, a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Haudenosaunee that had bound them to share this territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers to Turtle Island have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And I'm so delighted to be with you all today across the country with so many of you for this exciting celebration of Duty Counsel Day. And I guess, like many Canadians, I hadn't heard the words Duty Counsel, and I didn't know what it meant, that it meant the kind of help that people need and don't even know that they need until they do. When I was asked to support this day of recognition, I was enthusiastic and terrifically proud to hear about the kind of work lawyers have been doing for people in Canada. It's a marvelous thing that this ability to give people representation in a country which sees itself as democratic. And I was very surprised and happy to learn the breadth of the assistance that this important role provides to Canadians, and that it is supported so enthusiastically by the legal profession. And people at their most vulnerable point in their lives have access to this kind of expertise. Au Canada, nous vivons dans une société égalitaire et nous avons accès à tout ce que la nature grandiose a à nous offrir. Les lacs, les forêts, les villes bouillonnantes de vie et culture. Nous, comme citoyens, nous avons besoin de la chose la plus essentielle dans la société juste, notre accès au système de loi et de droit. For a lot of Canadians, help with legal matters is not something that they automatically expect. Many Canadians are afraid of the law, feel that they don't necessarily want to have anything to do with it, and yet circumstances can arise where if they are not legally represented, they will find that they are disadvantaged and they can suffer terribly as a result. The structure of our society in Canada is extremely well evolved, and the legal structure is one that keeps us all safe and secure. We all have the right to vote. We know we have free speech, and we know that we can freely assemble and meet people, anybody, anytime we wish, in any circumstance. Mais quand les problèmes se lèvent, souvent les citoyens se trouvent perdus par le manque de connaissance de la système légal. People can be at risk of terribly serious outcomes if they don't understand what is happening to them or what is legally required of them. And often it can mean losing custody of their children or being held in prison. When I became Governor General, I said in my inauguration speech that I was happy to be in a society which was forgiving, a society which Canada has always been. There are two kinds of societies in the world: punishing societies and forgiving societies. A society like Canada's, with its 4 centuries of give and take, compromise and acceptance, wrongdoing and redress, wounding and reconciliation, is basically a forgiving society. We must try to forgive what is past. We must now always move in the spirit of reconciliation. The punishing society, however, never forgets the wrongs of the past. The forgiving society works towards actions of the future. The forgiving society enables people to behave well towards one another, to begin again, to build a society in love and hope. Only in this spirit will we achieve true reconciliation. And Duty Counsel Day reminds us that it is important that everybody in our society is equal and that they have equal access to our justice system, which is one of the finest parts of our society. Everyone in Canada who is accused of a crime is innocent until proved guilty. Every single citizen deserves the fullest legal defense that our sophisticated system of law, with its roots going back to Magna Carta, can give. Duty Counsel lets us understand that equality really means something, and equality is the basis of the democratic society which we enjoy in Canada. Anybody you know can fall on hard times and end up in the justice system. A co-worker, a neighbor, a friend, your kid, even you. And in Winnipeg, Sean Gallup's story could be any one of ours. Today, he's a fresh graduate of the University of Manitoba's Law School. He's working as an articling student at Legal Aid Manitoba. But you know, life wasn't always this good for Sean. Looking at Sean's success today, you'd never know that he spent 2 years living on the streets fighting addiction. He's been in jail more than once and was himself a legal aid client who has relied on Duty Counsel for help facing criminal charges in court. Sean has come a long way from once needing legal aid to helping others who, like him, have felt marginalized, isolated, and alone. Here's Sean's story.
My name is Sean Gallup, and I am an articling student at Legal Aid Manitoba for the Phoenix office. I was a wild child when I was younger, especially when I was around 16 to probably 22. I was very wild. I was going through a lot, and I broke the law quite a bit. I did a lot of we did shoplifting, and I developed an alcohol problem late in life. I didn't develop till I was about 17, but boy, did I take to it. And that problem with alcohol brought me in conflict with the law with shoplifting. And I spent time in custody. And I remember as a youth, when I was spending the time in custody, how great it was to see that legal aid lawyer when he came to see me, and just how out of control it felt. Like I felt like I had no control of when I was in custody. And when I went to that courtroom, and you go to that courtroom and you see it's all happening in front of you. It feels like it's a theater and you have no idea what's going on. I had no idea what's going on. And just to have that somebody who I knew was helping me and was on my side, that was something that was really important. I was homeless for about 2 years in Winnipeg from 2005 to 2007. And I really hit Skid Row then. And once again, I had a legal aid lawyer help me get out of some of the criminal charges that I got during my addiction. So I was given chances, lots of chances. I could have easily have had a criminal record as a youth. I could easily have had a criminal record as an adult because I committed a theft, and I was given a chance at diversion back in the 90s. I was given an opportunity to take some addiction programming in order to stay the charge. And so I did that, and I was afforded that opportunity. But the people I'm helping today are marginalized, they're isolated. And a lot of them are part of a social structure that they didn't have a choice to be part of. And so, but they're coming from that starting point of being behind. They're scared and vulnerable. And when I do my job, I go to visit people in custody. I know what that vulnerability is like. And I try to use that experience to help them, not just legally, but like as a person, and try to bring some sort of a compassion to that. I'm just open to sharing my personal experience on both sides of the coin because, I think people are capable of change. People are capable of change. People make mistakes, and holding records and holding mistakes against people isn't helpful to them or society. And, the fact that I've gotten to where I have and where I am now in life, and I've overcome all those challenges and all those bad mistakes with all those consequences to other people. And now I'm in a situation where I'm better off for myself and I'm helping other people. I think that's something that we need to, remember because I think sometimes we get too jaded in the system. I'm a very good example that social programs help build people up because I've taken advantage of so many social programs to get to where I am. My addiction issues were really what was bringing me into conflict with the law, and anything that would lead me towards dealing with that was helpful in dealing with that underlying issues. For me, that's what it was dealing with that addiction issue. I gave myself a chance and I took a risk in my mid-40s, and it really paid off. it's more than just, punching a clock in and reading a file. It's answering that phone and saying, yeah, okay, I can help.
Sean Gallup found somebody who could help him when he was vulnerable and frightened, and that is what Duty Counsel Day celebrates. I'm very happy to introduce Karen Wilford, the chair of the Association of Legal Aid Plans of Canada. And Karen is also the executive director of the Legal Aid Commission of the Northwest Territories and council member of the Federation of Law Societies of Canada. Karen joins us today from Yellowknife.
Thank you, Madam Clarkson. Good afternoon and early evening to all of our attendees from across Canada. I bring greetings from Treaty 8, or Chief Draighe's territory, and the home of the North Slave Métis peoples. I invite each of you to reflect on the multitude of traditional lands in Canada, and I encourage all of us to work for a more just and reconciled world. Justice, fairness, and equity. These are all values that every Canadian holds dear and form a solid core of who we are as a nation. These values are something to be incredibly proud of and something to always strive for. That striving means acknowledging that not everyone experiences justice or the justice system in the same way. Assisting people to achieve justice is as important as having a fair justice system, and this is where legal aid comes in. Every territory and province in Canada has a publicly funded legal aid program. Each is unique, tailored to the needs of each jurisdiction's clients and capacities, and responsive to the many geographic and cultural realities of our vast country. Some programs are staff-based. Others look primarily to the services of roster lawyers, and many employ a blend of those models. Some use a clinic-based approach. Some are tech-heavy, some have hundreds of staff, and in some, the executive director also unjams the photocopier. Despite these differing approaches and sizes, there is a very long list of things that legal aid plans have in common. The most central of these is the belief that each client deserves our very best, and that is to be treated with dignity and given every opportunity to participate meaningfully in their legal process. Each legal aid program is a member of the Association of Legal Aid Plans of Canada, an organization that brings together the executive directors and CEOs to exchange information and address emerging trends with the goal of continuously improving the delivery of legal aid services. We also participate in projects such as today's National Duty Counsel Day. And I would like here to acknowledge Legal Aid Alberta for their leadership in driving this project from inception through 1 or 2 Zoom meetings to today. Well done. People from across all legal aid plans contributed to the planning and execution of today's event and did what legal aiders do best: connected, collaborated, and constructed. This inherent desire to build up and to ensure that all succeed is also at the root of the Duty Counsel programs across Canada. Every day, Duty Counsel reach out and uplift those people who find themselves encountering the justice system, providing as many different supports as there are needs: advice, directions, referrals, speaking in court. And I would wager that we all know at least one Duty Counsel lawyer who has come home from court without their coat because someone else needed it more. Duty Counsel dial down the anxiety of an uncertain situation so that clients can understand their options and make important and crucial decisions in an informed way. And as we heard just now from Sean Gallup's message, that support, that offer of a hand, can mean everything. I'm honored to speak on behalf of Canada's 13 legal aid plans and to express heartfelt gratitude to all Duty Counsel who do this work for all the right reasons. And one of those reasons is a fervent belief that access to justice saves lives.
Thank you, Karen, for emphasizing the dignity of people who use the system and the kindness of the people who offer it. It's now my privilege to introduce the Right Honourable Mr. Justice Richard Wagner, the 18th Chief Justice of Canada. Chief Justice Wagner has been instrumental in modernizing the Supreme Court of Canada through such initiatives as sitting outside of Ottawa and the creation of plain language case summaries from our highest court. He's known for his warmth and compassion for the human condition, which is matched by his commitment to the accessibility of our justice system and to its role in our democracy. We're thankful for Chief Justice Wagner's support and acknowledgement of Duty Counsel Day. Now we will hear from Chief Justice Wagner, and he will be followed by Senator Laboucan Benson from Alberta.
Merci, Madame Clarkson, de votre accueil chaleureux. Bonjour, hello. Bonne journée des avocats de service. I am so pleased to join you for this celebration of your hard work, expertise, and dedication. I also wish to express my congratulations to those who volunteered to make Duty Counsel Day a reality and make this event a success. Il était grand temps que se tienne une telle journée. En effet, vous méritez toutes et tous d'être reconnus pour les services essentiels que vous fournissez. Je suis convaincu que les activités d'aujourd'hui aideront à sensibiliser les membres du public au sujet de leurs droits, du système juridique et de la façon dont ils peuvent avoir accès à la justice. Après tout, l'accès à la justice favorise l'égalité, qui est le fondement de notre démocratie et qui protège nos libertés. Pour que les gens aient confiance dans notre système de justice, ils doivent y avoir accès. Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees our right to be equal before and under the law, and to have equal protection and benefit of the law. We know this guarantee has not always been respected, especially for women, immigrants, people experiencing poverty, Indigenous people, among others. Yet, every day of the week and around the clock, Duty Counsel uphold that guarantee. You build confidence in the justice system. I recognize this has been more difficult while working on the legal front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. More people have needed your help as they try to cope with job losses, evictions, and abandoned leases. Marriages have broken down. Parents are arguing about access, schooling, and vaccinations. These personal and economic stresses have amplified pre-existing problems in our society. Problems that may end up in a court or before a tribunal, such as the Landlord and Tenant Board. Lorsque je suis devenu juge à la Cour supérieure du Québec, j'ai rapidement constaté que les avocats et avocates de service possèdent et utilisent d'impressionnantes habiletés interpersonnelles, peut-être même davantage que dans tout autre secteur de la pratique du droit. Les avocats et avocates de service travaillent auprès de gens qui ont peur, qui sont confus ou qui sont agressifs, parfois même tout cela à la fois. Malgré ce contexte chargé d'émotivité, ils savent trouver la façon de venir en aide aux gens qu'ils servent. Ils sont capables d'écarter les faits non pertinents et de susciter chez leurs clients des attentes raisonnables afin d'aider ceux-ci à prendre des décisions éclairées. Il s'agit d'une tâche ardue lorsqu'on travaille auprès de clients qui sont aux prises avec des troubles de la personnalité ou des dépendances ou qui sont en situation d'itinérance. But Duty Counsel are creative and resourceful, especially when working with community partners. If we were together in the same room right now, I would ask this group for a show of hands if they have administered mental health first aid or comforted a child at a courthouse. This work can be emotionally and professionally demanding. I enjoyed exploring the Duty Counsel Day website. I was especially moved by the perspective of Alan Loney. He is Duty Counsel for Legal Aid Manitoba's Child Protection Law Office. In his write-up, Mr. Journée said his favorite responsibility is to work as amicus curiae, where he acts as a friend of the court to speak on behalf of a child. He said, and I quote, "If I could just represent the children, that would be my dream job," unquote. This is what I mean when I tell law school graduates that the law is a caring and noble profession. For many Canadians, Duty Counsel will be their first experience with a lawyer. Et en raison de l'engagement et de la passion que vous manifestez à l'égard de l'accès à la justice, j'estime que personne d'autre ne saurait donner à ces gens une meilleure première impression de la profession. Merci beaucoup de votre attention. Thank you so much.
My name is Senator Patty Laboucan-Benson, and I'm celebrating Duty Counsel Day. The historic and systemic injustices faced by Indigenous people exacerbate their mistrust in the courts. 30% of Indigenous people in Canadian prisons are Indigenous, yet Indigenous people make up only 5% of the Canadian population. Incarceration rates are 10 times higher for Indigenous people than non-Indigenous people in Canada. And Indigenous men make up 28% of the male incarceration population in Canada, and Indigenous women make up 42% of the incarcerated female population. The legacy of historic trauma for Indigenous people is connected to this overrepresentation. Pervasive feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and powerlessness in the justice system sometimes result in Indigenous defendants pleading guilty for crimes they didn't commit. This is just one of the factors that perpetuates overrepresentation of Indigenous people in custody. Duty Counsel are protectors. They can step in and make sure procedures are followed, that rights are respected, and that everyone is given equal treatment. Duty Counsel go out of their way to offer guidance. They know the agencies that can help clients with non-legal issues like housing, addictions, and employment, and direct them to these groups. In Indigenous courts, especially, Duty Counsel are able to follow an individual's case over time and establish trust. Another barrier to justice is physical access. People who live in remote communities with no access to transportation to attend court. One way around this is to make Duty Counsel available virtually. A Legal Aid Alberta program called Early Appearance Advice gives people charged with a crime the chance to phone legal aid up to 14 days before their court appearance to get advice on what to expect and what their options are. This service is free and is one step in ensuring access to justice. We're grateful today and every day for the protection Canada's Duty Counsel lawyers provide. Thank you.
And now it's time to introduce today's question and answer session to get an inside look at what Duty Counsel does in courtrooms across the country. Legal Aid Duty Counsel is available in every province and territory through services, though the services may vary in each region. How can Duty Counsel help victims of domestic abuse or someone in an immigration detention? And what is a bail hearing? Let's find out. The host of today's question and answer panel is 13-year-old Sasha Denis Thibault of Ottawa. Sasha Denis is here to represent young Canadians and their most common questions about legal and duty counsel.
I'm Sasha Denis, and today I'm going to be asking some of the most common questions there is for Duty Counsel. Je m'appelle Sasha Denis et je vais demander les questions les plus communes demandées par les gens à propos de la service l'avocat de service. On our panel today are Deanna Harris, youth and criminal lawyer from Saskatchewan, Megan Johnson, immigration and refugee lawyer from Ontario, Paul Storty, family welfare lawyer from Nova Scotia, Nicola Langille, youth and criminal lawyer from the Northwest Territories. Thank you for being here. Okay, so the first question is for Deanna. So what is Duty Counsel?
Hi, Sasha Didi. Since it's National Duty Counsel Day, I'm going to brag a bit and say that Duty Counsel are kind of this secret superheroes of the legal system. We're lawyers paid for by the government whose job it is to help people who need legal advice and representation who can't access or otherwise hire a private lawyer. We have a number of people on the panel today who are duty counsel in their own territories and provinces. And later on in the presentation, they're going to be providing you with overviews of more specific overviews of what they do. But generally, we have Nicola and myself, and we represent people with respect to criminal duty counsel. So that means we help people who are charged with criminal offenses in the justice system. We also have Paul from Nova Scotia, and he helps people in the area of family law, which means that he can help with things like divorce, child support, and child and family services matters. We also have Megan from Ontario, and she helps people in the area of immigration law. So that means that she helps people who need advice and representation at things like immigration tribunals or refugee tribunals. So legal systems are really complicated and they're overwhelming for people who've never had contact with them before. Duty counsel are employed to give advice, to guide, and to represent people who become involved in these systems. We do a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but the main thing to remember is that we are lawyers who will help you free of charge with your legal issue. We don't have a bat signal, but legal aid plans do have websites, so you can definitely find us on Google.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question is for Megan. Why should someone have duty counsel if they don't have a lawyer?
So if someone is eligible for the services of duty counsel, I would always advise that they use these services. Just like Deanna said, duty counsel are the superheroes, secret superheroes of the justice system. And as Deanna also noted, legal matters can be very complicated. And a lot of the time they're more complicated than people might realize. They also have really serious consequences. Again, sometimes those consequences can be more serious than people realize. So it's always better to get advice or get representation from a lawyer so that you can make the best decisions possible in the case of getting advice, or in the case where someone's eligible for representation, that they have the assistance of someone who has the knowledge and experience to try to get the best possible outcome for you.
I have a question for Nicola. When you go to court, can you hire duty counsel to be your lawyer?
It's a great question, Sasha Dini, and the short answer is no, you cannot.
Why not?
Well, so as Deanna mentioned, duty counsel is paid for by the government, and it's meant to be for everybody who needs some advice, and to make sure that nobody goes through the court process feeling alone. So duty counsel does this work no matter how much money you make and no matter whether you can pay for a lawyer or not. In short, we're hired by the state and not by individual clients. And so that means that you can't hire us to be your private lawyer.
Thank you. What kind of things can duty counsel help with? Paul, what can family duty counsel help with?
Thanks, Sasha, Jenny. We can help people understand the rights and responsibilities of parents, guardians, and children. We can explain the law and how the law applies to a particular situation of a person. We can help them determine what forms are required to be filed with the court. We can help them interpret court orders and talk about the implications of following or not following a court order. We talk about all areas of family law and give advice about it, such as child and spousal support, parenting issues, property, pensions, separation, even child welfare. We may offer, and a lot of times we offer what we would call coaching to help people decide to go forward settlement proposals, helping them prepare for settlement conferences, motions with the court, trials, preparing documents. In child protection in Nova Scotia, there's a pilot where we can actually appear with parents and youth on a early stages of the court appearances. And we also assist in filling out forms for court applications and motions. And that's just a few of a list of what we can do.
In Saskatchewan, we can help adults who've been charged with criminal offenses who are in custody. We can help those individuals with bail hearings, which means we try to get them out of jail or negotiate their release from jail if they've been arrested and are remaining in custody. We can also help those individuals with guilty pleas, sentencings, which means if they want to accept responsibility for the crime that they're charged with, we can help them with that phase. So accepting responsibility and arguing for the most fair possible sentence for them. And for in custody as well, we may open a full service file and do the trials for them. For out of custody matters, we can do adjournments. We can also do the negotiation and guilty plea and sentencing phase. If they qualify financially for Saskatchewan legal aid, then we can also open a full service file and take the matter to trial. With respect to youths who are charged with criminal offenses, we can help with the same things. We can try and argue for them to get out of custody. If they're in custody, we can run trials and we can do guilty pleas and sentencings for them.
Is it the same in the Northwest Territories, Nicola?
So there are some differences in what Duty Counsel can help with across the country. The Northwest Territories, our system looks a lot like what Deanna just described. So we do everything that Deanna mentioned. We help at all stages of the criminal process. So this means that we show up right away when you're arrested, whether you're an adult or a youth, and no questions asked. We're there to help. We do help people all the way through the criminal process. So we do take a number of matters to trial as well, if people qualify financially for that. And so because of that, we sort of see our system as looking a little bit more like a public defender system, as you might hear that term being used in the United States. But by and large, it's how Deanna described it up here. And in other jurisdictions, there are some more limitations, some more restrictions. So there are some variations across the country.
Thank you. And in Ontario, what immigration refugee situations can Duty Counsel help with, Megan?
So we actually don't really have Duty Counsel services in Ontario in the immigration and refugee world. So it's not quite correct to use the term Duty Counsel here, but what we do have in Ontario is that Legal Aid Ontario recently started a one-year pilot project called the Immigration Detention Representation Project, where we're providing representation to all unrepresented individuals in the province who are in immigration detention. So we're representing all these individuals at their detention review hearings if they don't otherwise have a lawyer.
Paul, if someone is in an abusive relationship, how do they get help?
Sasha Denis, that's a very difficult question to answer in such a short time. It's a very complex issue. Persons that we might deal with or meet up with might be at various stages. Some may still be with the person or the situation subject to violence. Some of them may have left. So everybody's situation is unique and different. And I think what we have to do is we have to recognize their situation and basically give information and assist in what way we can. We need to inform them that there's children involved, that may involve child protection. We'd certainly inform them of services that are available, like outreach services for transition shelters, talk about and give information about temporary protective shelters, counseling, therapy. We talked earlier, I think Deanna had said about websites. There's some really good websites. In Nova Scotia, it's nsdomesticviolence.ca, has a lot of good resources and contacts. And federally, the Department of Justice, under the Family Law tab, has really good resources dealing with domestic violence and family violence specifically.
In a criminal case, what does it mean if someone pleads guilty?
So when you're charged with a crime, it's important to know that it has not been proven that you've done anything wrong. And actually, it's the opposite. We presume that you haven't done anything wrong. That's what we call the presumption of innocence. You might have heard that term before. It's the prosecutor or the Crown's job to prove that you did something wrong. And until they do that, nothing's been proven. As I call the prosecutor the Crown because in theory, they're representing the Queen. So the Crown acts as the Queen's representative in court and is another lawyer, just like we're lawyers. So there's two ways that it can be proven that you did something wrong. The first is you can plead guilty. And this means that you tell the judge that you accept responsibility for what they think you did or it said that you did. It means you're willing to admit that you did what the Crown is alleging, in short. The second way that you can be found guilty is you can have a trial. So a trial means that witnesses come to court. They tell the judge what happened based on what they saw or what they heard. And the judge has to believe, based on that information, that you actually committed a crime. So those are the two ways that you can be found guilty. You don't have any obligation to plead guilty, even if you did something wrong. It's always the Crown's job to prove that you did something wrong. And you can ask the Crown to prove that you did something wrong by having a trial. If somebody does want to plead guilty, we as duty counsel have to be pretty confident. We have to go through a series of steps to make sure that you understand what it is you're admitting to and the consequences of admitting your guilt. For example, the punishment that you could receive and what that might mean for you. So there's a lot that has to happen for you to plead guilty, and it's not so simple, but that's a guilty plea in short.
Why would someone be held in immigration detention?
So Canada's laws allow for someone to be detained in immigration detention if the immigration authorities believe that they would be unlikely to show up for their immigration proceedings, if the immigration authorities are concerned that someone might be a danger to the public, if the immigration authorities say that the person's detention is necessary while the immigration authorities investigate them, or if the immigration authorities say that the person's identity has not been established. And immigration detention can apply to any individual who's not a Canadian citizen.
How long can someone be held in detention?
So in some rare cases, people can be held in immigration detention for a really long time. The law doesn't actually set out any limits as to how long someone can be held in detention. Now, it's pretty rare, but people can be held in immigration detention for several years if their case takes a long time to be resolved. So for example, if it's hard to get a travel document that would allow the person to be deported from Canada. Human rights organizations that work with people in immigration detention have called for there to be a limit on the amount of time that someone can be held in immigration detention, but we haven't seen that limit come into the law yet.
Can kids be held in detention, like lower, like their age is less than 12?
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, it can be the case that kids can be held in immigration detention. It doesn't happen very often, but it can still happen. The rules that govern the immigration tribunal do say that minors, so that refers to anyone under 18, minors should only be detained in the most exceptional circumstances and for the shortest time possible.
So how does someone get out of immigration detention?
Yes, great question. So someone who's being held in immigration detention will have what's called a detention review hearing. That's kind of like a bail hearing. So that's the hearing to decide if they'll get released. Those hearings take place before the Immigration and Refugee Board, which is an independent tribunal. Tribunal is kind of like a slightly less formal court. So the hearings take place 48 hours after the person is detained. There's another one 7 days later, 30 days later, and then every 30 days after that. At every detention review, the person has the chance to argue that either there's no reason for them to be detained or that their detention isn't justified because, let's say, for example, they have a release plan that would be enough to reduce any risk the immigration authorities are concerned about.
Now, a few commonly asked questions for the Criminal Duty Counsel. If I have a criminal record, do I have to tell a future employer or school?
It depends on whether or not it's a youth or an adult record. As an adult, you don't always have to disclose a criminal record. If you've been pardoned or if you've been granted a record suspension, you don't normally have to. And that means that enough time has gone by since your last criminal conviction that the government might agree to kind of separate your criminal record from the other ones and remove it from the system. So it's not disclosed to on a criminal record check. As an adult, if you've been sentenced to something called a discharge, that's a finding of guilt which results in a temporary criminal record, but it's not the same thing as a permanent criminal record. So you may not have to disclose that. Youth records, so for you specifically, Sasha Denis, they're a different thing than a criminal record. They're findings of guilt under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. So no, youths do not have to disclose their youth records to employers and future educational institutions. There is a myth out there that for youths that when you turn 18, your youth record magically disappears. I think that comes from like American television or something, but that's not true in Canada. In Canada, they can retain your youth criminal record for a period of time. So it could be either 3 or 5 years, depending on what you were found guilty of. And you have to be good for that period of time. And if you're not good and you get in trouble with the criminal justice system again, your youth record could actually become part of your adult record. So for example, if you do something and you are found guilty as a 17-year-old, if the period of time that you have to be good is 3 years, that means that you have to be good until you're 20 and not be found guilty or be convicted of anything else under the criminal code for that period of time for your youth record to disappear. So it's really important that people understand that there's nothing magical about turning 18. Your youth record doesn't just disappear in a puff of smoke.
Now I have a question for Nicola. What's a bail hearing?
So when you're charged with a crime, in other words, when the police think that you did something wrong and they arrest you, one of two things can happen. They can either tell you that you're in trouble if they arrest you, and then they let you go and tell you to come to court at a later date to deal with the situation. That's the first thing they can do. Or the police can tell you that they think you did something wrong and keep you in custody. In other words, they can keep you in jail. In that case, you have the right to what's called a bail hearing. So in short, you have the right to argue that you should be let out of jail while your charges are being dealt with. And it's important to remember, when you're charged, it hasn't yet been proven that you did anything wrong, and charges can take a long time to go through the courts. Sometimes you get the impression from television that you're charged one day, your trial is day 2, and then you've served your sentence by day 3. That's not how it works in real life, unfortunately. I wish things would go maybe a little bit faster than they do. But that means that it's important that as many people can be out of jail while they're waiting to deal with their charges as possible, because it can take a long time. So at a bail hearing, basically the Crown and the defense lawyer or duty counsel, so again, the 2 lawyers, argue about whether you should be let out of jail, and if so, whether you should have to follow any rules that are designed to make sure you don't get into trouble.
Thank you, everyone, for talking with me today and helping me learn more about what you guys do.
And now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the President of the Canadian Bar Association, Stephen Rothstein. Stephen is the Director, Global and Domestic Affairs at the Ontario Securities Commission, where he's also part of the executive leadership team. Prior to that, Stephen was Vice President, Policy and Regulatory Affairs and General Counsel at FP Canada, where he practiced corporate, commercial, employment, IP, corporate governance, privacy, and nonprofit law. Stephen serves on the governance committees of the Credit Counseling Society and 4 Villages Community Health Centre. He obtained his Bachelor of Arts, his BA degree in Political Science and History from the University of Western Ontario, and he obtained his Bachelor of Law degree from York University, Osgoode Hall Law School. He's been a member of the Canadian Bar Association since 2015.
Bonjour, hello. I'm delighted to speak to you from Toronto, home to many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Je suis fier d'être avec vous pour célébrer la journée d'avocat de service. I want to acknowledge the Right Honourable Richard Wagner, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, as well as the Right Honourable Adrienne Clarkson, Canada's 26th Governor General, and many other distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It's an honor to share a virtual stage with you and to help raise awareness and celebrate the critical role Duty Counsel play in improving access to justice in the country. Many thanks to the Association of Legal Aid Plans of Canada for the invitation to be part of Canada's inaugural Duty Counsel Day. The Canadian Bar Association represents over 36,000 lawyers, Quebec notaries, law professors, and students across Canada. We are proud to have many Duty Counsel among our members. We have long advocated for better access to justice and sustainable funding for legal aid. We continue to call on governments to take a leadership role and implement better and more consistent legal aid everywhere across the country. Access to justice is a bit like access to healthcare. Nobody really wants to need it, but we're happy that the system is there when we're suddenly faced with life-altering crisis. We know that many people in Canada face serious legal issues in their lives. If these issues don't get solved, they can snowball into bigger problems, including mental health challenges, job losses, and broken relationships. Canadians know the healthcare system is there when they need it, regardless of financial means. We want the justice system to work the same way. Duty Counsel provide legal services to people in need, people who could not otherwise afford legal representation, people who face a serious legal crisis like criminal charges or family separation or deportation, crisis where so much is at risk. Duty Counsel is a great way to deliver legal aid services and help achieve equal access to the public legal assistance in all corners of Canada. I want to thank the hardworking Duty Counsel from across the country for their incredible work that they do to give voice to those who cannot speak for themselves. The CBA urges Canadians to learn more about the services available from Duty Counsels and to help us advocate for the system where everyone, everywhere has equal access to justice. Merci, Megwish, thank you.
As we approach the final segments of our program, I want to thank everyone here for watching. We're going to switch gears a little now and treat you all to a glimpse of Duty Counsel life in Canada's North. We asked Duty Counsel from Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut to share some of their experiences. And no slideshow is complete without the music, so they did that too. We hope this video brings you into our world for a few minutes and expresses the gratitude and exuberance that Duty Counsel bring to their work every day. The music video will be followed by a cross-country expression of appreciation. And finally, a number of iconic Canadian landmarks have lent their support to Duty Counsel Day by lighting up red. We'll take a look. But first, let's have a listen.
When it's not always raining, there'll be days like this. When there's no one complaining, there'll be days like this. When everything falls into place like the flick of a switch, well, my mother told me there'll be days like this. When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there'll be days like this. When you don't get betrayed by that old distress. Oh, my mother told me there'll be days like this. When you don't need an answer, there'll be days like this. When you don't need a answer, there'll be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit, then I must remember there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this. When everyone is up front and they're not playing tricks. When you don't have no freeloaders out to get their kicks. When it's nobody's business the way that you want to live. Oh, I just have to remember there'll be days like this. Ba-da-da. When no one steps on my dreams, days like this. When people understand what I mean, there'll be days like this. When you ring out the changes of how everything is, well, my mother told me there'll be days like this. Ba, ba, da, ba. Na 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 na. Ooh. Na 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 na. Told me there'll be days like this. Oh, my mother, she told me there'll be days like this. Well, my mother, she told me there'll be days like this.
The representation that Duty Counsel lawyers provide every day affects our well-being and the well-being of our nation. They give voice to those unable to speak for themselves and bring guidance when hope is faint.
You are on the front lines of justice, and your vital work and dedication has continued to move the system forward.
We have people in our territory who depend on our Duty Counsel, who practice across Nunavut in some very remote places and provide exemplary service.
Duty Counsel has played such an important role in access to justice for Indigenous people.
Legal Aid Duty Counsel service helps more than 10,000 Saskatchewan residents every year navigate the justice system.
I've come to understand just how essential that work is in providing representation and advice and support to people involved in our court systems.
Duty Counsel are crucial to the administration of justice in Nova Scotia and across the country. They're really the frontline workers.
Through legal aid clinics in Yellowknife, Duty Counsel services are offered to clients in all 33 of our communities, spread out across 1.3 million square kilometers.
This day is a great opportunity for Albertans and all Canadians to celebrate the incredible, important work that Legal Aid Duty Counsel do.
While all lawyers are trained in law school to analyze legal problems, Duty Counsel lawyers also understand the plight of people in our communities who face a mix of legal and social problems, or who may perceive the law to be oppressive rather than a positive force in their lives.
The Duty Counsel lawyer is essentially the face of help. I'm here to help you. Tell me what happened. Tell me your story.
When people are concerned about their relationship with their children, custody and access arrangements, it is among the worst experiences they will have. So thank you for that work. I know it's difficult.
You're doing such essential work to protect justice and human rights in this province.
It should be comfort to Canadians everywhere to know that you're there for them should they ever require you.
Duty Counsel play an important role in making the justice system work for thousands of Canadians every day.
Most Canadians don't know that the Legal Aid Duty Counsel are always on call, for they have made our legal system the envy of most jurisdictions.
À tous les avocats de service, votre rôle est clé afin d'assurer l'accès à la justice. Vous êtes au premier plan pour faire l'offre active des services en français et de vous assurer que les droits aux services en français dans le système de justice soient respectés.
Please note that you have an ally in the Canadian Bar Association, advocating for the sustainable system and funding you need to serve Canadians.
Thank you for all of the work you do and for your commitment to justice. The justice system depends very much on you and your dedication to the rule of law and providing timely legal advice and information to people whose legal needs are pressing.
Well, that's been wonderful to celebrate this day, and I want to make a plea to everybody in every province to support legal aid, that the politicians listen, that legal aid is not cut. Legal aid is like health, it's an essential thing that the citizens need, and so legal aid must be funded. Legal aid is necessary to have an egalitarian society. Let us support it, and let's always fight any cut to funding that might happen. The other thing I would like to know is, could you perhaps make another name for Duty Counsel and make it very accessible for people so that they could understand immediately what it means? We don't want to say public defender like the United States, but there could be a meaning for it. And I think maybe somebody like Sacha Denis or kids of their generation will think of something that would really make it quite a terrific title for us. Also, we're going to receive a lot of immigration and refugees in the next few years, and we're going to have to be able to help those people maneuver through our system in order for them to fully realize their abilities as Canadians and as people who are going to be part of the fabric of the wonderful country that we live in. So a wonderful Duty Counsel Day. Thank you to everybody for all the hard work you put into this event. I think it's been marvelous. And thank you for inviting me to share it.